Did you know that Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich had a secret deal to privatize Social Security? Yes, in 1998, they had a secret deal to privatize Social Security. So Bill Clinton, after he repealed the New Deal banking legislation at the behest of Wall Street, which then crashed the economy within 10 years, he also, what else did he do? He gutted welfare at the same time he was passing NAFTA, screwing over unions, and exploding the prison population. Holy shit. And then he consolidated the media from 50 giant media companies to 6. That was a Republican's wet dream that they couldn't get done. It took Bill Clinton to do it, and he's going to tell you about it right here. Ready?
They had it all figured out. They knew what they were going to do with Social Security. They're going to invest it in the stock market. They had a timetable for how they would do it. Clinton would announce it. Gingrich would propose something. They would set up various commissions, and you can guess what the commissions would decide. And they had it all figured out. And Clinton even went through with the first step in his State of the Union speech in 1998, where he said that he was going to save Social Security first. You might remember this. That was his code phrase for we're going to privatize it. Now, y'all know what happened to this this beautiful proposal. Monica Lewinsky the very next day, right? And that we never heard about that plan again. I mean, if you ask me, she's a hero, you know? They had to put her on a postage stamp, is what I think. Now, Clinton had a strategy as when he was running for office in 1992, when he was running for the presidency. He had this strategy that he would use on the campaign trail where he would go out of his way to insult or to distance himself from some traditional Democratic constituency like labor and minorities, and thus assure the public that he was his own man. And the most famous example of this is when he contrived to insult Jesse Jackson to his face while the cameras were rolling. They called this the Sister Souljah moment. Nobody remembers the particular of it anymore, but they remember the insult. And Clinton's allies and friends always talk about what a genius move this was on his part. What he was doing when he did this was telling these groups that they had nowhere else to go. He wasn't going to listen to them. They had nowhere else to go. They had to, put up or shut up. And what's weird is when you read the history of the Clinton administration, and when I say the history of the Clinton administration, I don't mean like the sort of right-wing literature, which is all filled with these crazy conspiracy theories and stuff, but I mean the serious accounts of his administration. And when you read these, what you discover is that this campaign tactic of insulting your allies eventually became like a full-blown philosophy of governance for this guy. And the great example here is the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA. When, if you remember back to those days, the previous president, George H.W. Bush, George Bush's dad, had negotiated it with Mexico and Canada, but couldn't get it through Congress because, of course, Congress was controlled in those days, as it had been since the 1930s, by the Democratic Party. And they were like, no way. And organized labor was bitterly opposed to it. But Clinton was able to ram it through. This is something that only a Democrat could get done, and he got it done. But here's what's remarkable about this. And this was, of course, celebrated in the same way as his Sister Souljah moment was, right? He was showing these guys that he was boss. But when he did this, he wasn't merely insulting his friends in organized labor. Think about it. He was conniving in their ruin, okay? He was assisting in the diminishing of their economic power. He was doing his part to undermine his own party's greatest ally, to ensure that henceforth in any kind of dispute with its workers, management would always have the upper hand. Could always, if you protest or go on strike or something like that, they can always say, well, we're moving the plant to Mexico. And they do this all the time. It's a very common strategy. Not necessarily moving it, but threatening to move it. It happens all the time. So in passing NAFTA, Clinton made the problems of working people materially worse. Now, why am I going into all of this stuff? If we want to understand why the Democratic Party has failed us again and again and again, this is where you have to start. You have to look back to these issues in the 1990s. And NAFTA is a perfect one because it's as close to a straight-up class issue as you ever see in this country. And NAFTA gives us a sort of perfect crystalline understanding of, who our modern day Democrats mean to please. Okay? If you go back and look at the debate over NAFTA in the media, the media was very lopsidedly in favor of it. The professional class, generally professionals and the rich, were very much in favor of NAFTA, while working people, members of unions, were very much opposed to it. It was a straight class divide right down the middle. And it was, there was all sorts of how should we put it, status overtones to it, that it was all about education. If you had gone to college and had gone to Economics 101, you knew that trade was a good thing, right? It's like, duh, right? Of course. And so there was this moment where you had 283 economists signing an open letter to President Clinton saying that the treaty would be a net positive for the U.S., both in terms of employment creation and overall economic growth. Things like this. It was very common. And here's the sort of awful, ironic denouement of all this, is that the predictions of the people, who hadn't finished high school, who opposed the treaty, turned out to be far closer to what eventually came to pass than did all these rosy scenarios of the 283 economists and the Rhodes Scholar, Bill Clinton.
So that is what's wrong with the Democratic Party. That's what happened. Bill Clinton and Al Gore got in bed with the Koch brothers to start the DLC, the Democratic Leadership Council. They got in bed with Wall Street. They screwed over their base. They screwed over workers. They then repealed the New Deal banking legislation. They exploded the prison population. At the same time, they're gutting welfare. So if you want to know why workers in Michigan and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin didn't come out for Hillary Clinton, maybe because they remember what happened to them. And maybe at the same time you were asking them to come out to vote for Hillary, her president was pushing TPP as hard as he could at the top of his lungs. So that's what's stupid. That's the dumb perspective. To think that you can keep doing this shit, not acknowledge what the problem is, and it'll all be okay because of demographics. Because we're going to have more brown people in 2 years, and we'll even have more brown people in 4 years. And there's no way the Republicans can keep up. They're all going to have to. So we don't have to change. We don't actually have to represent people. We don't actually have to represent progressives. We can continue to tell the progressives to shut up and fall in line. That's what they mean by unity. They don't mean come together and we'll adopt some of your ideas. They mean shut the fuck up and support the shit and beg for crumbs. Hey, MSNBC just hired Megyn Kelly to make sure Santa Claus stays white. If you're sick of that kind of bullshit lefty corporatism from the news, support aggressive progressives right here at the Young Turks Network. You become a member for $10 a month. It gets you access to the whole show. We do an hour every week, and it gets you access to all the other member benefits at the Young Turks. Stick your thumb in the eye of the corporate news and become a member of TYT Network. Go to tytnetwork.com/join and find out what it's all about.